What's up, man?
Hey Charlie, what's going on? Appreciate you having.
How are you? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Good.
The I got a couple things, and then we'll go backwards here. Is it uh, is it Ridge or is it Luke? How does this work in your profession? Because I think I know the answer, but a lot of folks might wanna understand that a little bit.
Yeah, so um, I think Ridge is dead and buried now.
Yeah, yeah, we
So
got to get rid of that.
yeah, we've got to get rid of get rid of Ridge, and
Yeah,
now it's the rebirth. It's Luke Menzies now. So
fair enough, fair enough. The Here's something else. I typically don't suck at this, but let's see how close I could get. Obviously, we have been in each other's physical presence. I'm pretty sure, looking at the camera, this is not a small human being. Let's go 6'3", 260.
ooh, it's 6'1", and at the minute I'm kind of dropping down a bit, so I'm about 245 now. So
But on TV, what
oh,
would they have announced you at? You're
yeah, so
300.
no, no.
They would say you're 300.
I would always say like 6'1" or 6'2", and then 252,
Yeah.
255. Something
I,
like
I would uh I would say, probably shorter than maybe projected, because I get the same thing now, and obviously I'm 5 foot nothing. I have multiple cool stories. Oh, like, what are you, like, 5'8", 5? I'm like, Jesus Christ, if I was 5'8", 5'9", I'd be like 5 years out of the Hall of Fame by now. Holy
that.
shit! So no, that's I think back in the day, if I remember correctly, they listed Batista at 340, which is absolutely ridiculous. That he was never 340. All right, let's go backwards here, because for this series of little chats here, that's a run up to the next T equals R product, is some faces that people know, but some other ones that people don't know as well from the training and rehab world. But you're more well known for being, probably, what, the last 8 to 10 years, a WWE superstar. Is that do I have the years correct?
Yeah, correct. It's roughly like 7.5, 8 years. So you're pretty much spot on there, pal. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously a significant part of my audience, part of the relatability piece. I'm not sure what you can see back there. No, no, I think I have to turn it a little bit this way.
No,
Then you see some familiar things.
I can't.
Um, Obviously, Brian's Eco Belt is one of my, most favorite things.
Question
What,
for you: When are you gonna
yeah.
when are you gonna cash that briefcase in?
It was cashed in at the wedding. It was that briefcase was a part of the wedding, where the ring bearer
Hmm.
brought the briefcase, down the aisle, that one,
Yeah.
and the ring was in the briefcase.
Uh,
So you're yeah, got you on that
yeah,
one.
you have. Yeah, you're
Uh,
ahead of me.
so including something that, I know, we're not gonna get into this much, but you've moved on from WWE, so a lot of the podcast that you're doing, is probably more talking about wrestling, and that side of the profession, some of the things you went through. Not terribly critical to us, because you're a little bit more Luke, as every bit as much as your Ridge, in my world. So, but I do think it's important to say that while there's a lot of people that can say they've been WWE superstars, uh, we also, not too many are going to say, main event of a PLE, and we could say it was a tag match and there was a lot of other people in there, but not too many people can say that they main evented a pay-per-view, which was Survivor Series a couple years ago, correct?
Yeah, yeah. WarGames Survivor Series. Yeah, and just
Yeah,
a good
yeah.
opportunity to be in there. Yeah, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's go backwards a little bit. How do we know each other, and what business do you have here, other than being WWE superstar? Um, we met, for the first time, I think, let's say it's November, at a point where you were in the process of moving on from professional wrestling, but you're getting into the training space. And you happen to work with someone who we both know, Ali Gilbert. So you're a part of Silverback Coaching, which is that's the little bit of the link here.
Yep.
Um, but look, at whatever you're listed at, you know, as well as some of the things that we should probably discuss. Um, I'm pretty sure not every elite WWE performer knows about training.
Mm.
You had certainly experience. It's in your culture as far as the things you did before WWE. You had a barbell in your hand.
Yeah.
Whereas I won't say who, but I saw a text yesterday from somebody who's wanted to. This is an A-lister on TV every week, and he's ready to change his body a little bit. And I said, that's a good move.
Yeah.
That's a good move for so and so to do. That was never your problem. And most of the people that are in this series, whatever we're calling it, the applied, T equals R, the foot stuff, and we're just trying to, you know, use some information to get people jazzed up to understand, like, okay, the foot is not this esoteric thing, and that's a big part of what you're even probably still dealing with. That's going to be a little bit of meat and potatoes. But when we met, I'm going to guess we sat there and talked for about 90 minutes, and we probably didn't know each other for 90 minutes before that.
Nope.
And I think that says something, because even though you don't know the person, and obviously it would be not professional on any level, even though it wouldn't have been a big deal, we weren't talking about wrestling. We were talking about some other things that were maybe tangential to wrestling. Whereas other people that on these talks, I've had literally a 25-year relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that we can probably have. What I've tried to focus on is this is going to be a type of talk that only these two people can have. Not because there's any secrets or anything being shared that's not useful to the audience, even though it might be titillating to some. We're not doing that here. That's for other places, and hopefully you can leverage that to the best of your ability. I want everybody to win. But I thought that was very remarkable that we both felt comfortable talking that long with two people that relatively don't know each other. So is that how you remember it? Or is that just me?
No. It's the sentiment is exactly the same. It's very rare where you can come across a person and two personalities kind of come together after a short period of time and can just chop it up and not necessarily talk about the one thing that, obviously wrestling was the overarching thing, but we never really touched on that. It was other things. I think that it's just been comfortable, and obviously I was interested in what you had to say, and it was just a good conversation.
Yeah. And I think the your career shift I think is exciting, because it doesn't have to, you don't have to leave one or the other. You probably, at least for a little while, can run them both in terms of training. And quite frankly, okay, there's a cool championship belt up there, and I'm not gonna do. Well, here we go. Here's another WWE champion that I might be able to have on speed dial. One of my favorites, actually.
He's an awesome guy.
Love that dude. But the a fleeting relationship, but like he's from an area of Toronto, which people kind of know by now is highly for like Toronto, Boston, New York City, Philadelphia. That whole Northeast is like professional wrestling roots. But I would repost a bunch of his stuff, with nothing cryptic, just saying Brampton, Ontario, Canada, and because that's where a lot of the basketball players are from.
Okay.
Whether it's the different ethnicities, there's a couple cities around the six that those populations gravitate to. So in that room, so don't count me, but you had Ferrugia, who has an enormous foothold in working with professional wrestlers. Obviously, Tori was there, who I've known longer than her husband, very, very slightly. Yourself. I don't know if there was anybody else that would be in that space, in that room, other than people that pay for tickets. Because the who I just mentioned don't pay for tickets.
Yeah. Obviously, like Luke Lehman, he was working with me obviously as coaching while I was wrestling as well. But as far as the professional wrestling kind of fraternity, as you would call it, no, I think you put on there.
Yeah. So, but in the I think it's we're gonna kind of move more towards the training side. But I think obviously, as somebody that has been at at least we could say two elite sports, both of which command high respect. It's absolutely ludicrous, even though the the superstar that I'm referencing will do well by changing his shape a little bit because he can go, but he just doesn't look the part. And he's not heavy, so you probably can figure out who it is by now. Maybe we'll let it sneak through, but I don't want to say because it might not. It's a private text to somebody else. I don't want to say. But he would get some comments about how he looks, even though this is a main event level guy. But look, back in the day when drugs were much more available, people didn't look like that. They looked more like you and other people. So and that's not to suggest any aspersions because I'm sure you know the testing is at least random to you. It might not be random to the people deciding it, but you don't know when the tests are coming. So that's something to consider. But before or maybe what got you to the dance, you were at a high level of rugby, correct? In Wales.
Yeah, yeah.
So where's that? And I'll give you my little rugby story.
So basically, I played 12 years pro rugby, and in the north of England, so Yorkshire, Lancashire, going up towards like Newcastle, all those areas, and it was kind of like the top league in Europe. So basically, rugby league, you have the Super League, and then the other league, which is slightly higher standard, is the NRL, which is in Australia. So they're the two top leagues, obviously the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere.
So without rugby having a significant foothold at least in North America, I'm sure there's teams. I'm sure they can compete, but it's not a big thing. I mean, when I think of rugby in America, I think of suburban Chicago. I think of the Ivy League area, Princeton down in New Jersey. It's a little bit of a white collar type of sport, but certainly not white collar activity. And I think when we look at the sheer size of some of these human beings, uh, you know, training and preparedness is a big part of rugby. Has to be at the earliest level. So let's go back to when you were a little youngling coming up. When in rugby culture, when do we start that training process?
So it's very different in the UK as opposed to kind of like the training and the preparation and the strength and conditioning kind of ethos that you guys have in the States. It's very much a grassroots level, and you don't really get to that level of strength and conditioning or training in general until you actually sign for a professional club. So whereas in the US you may have you will have S&C coaches and trainers through high school, college, and obviously when you further education, then into the pro leagues. In the UK, there isn't that those funds that go into the schools and into the education systems, and sport isn't big in schools. It's more grassroots outside of schools. So basically, when I was there, I started playing around probably 7 or 8 years of age for a local club, and then I got picked up when I was 15 to start a scholarship for a team called Bradford Bulls, and that's when you would start obviously getting in the gym, being introduced to some form of conditioning, and just general preparedness for what might be to come. But as far as like from a young age, it was basically right. You put your boots on, you put your mouth guard in when you're 8 years old, and you go. So it's a very sharp learning curve going from not knowing anything about preparing your body, nutrition, just basic strength training, to then being dropped in at the deep end in a professional environment, going from having no idea what a professional environment looks like. It's a very steep learning curve, and some guys excel, and some guys break.
Yeah, I mean, what comes out of especially the New Zealand and Australia, at least what gets leaked out. This just looks like a very exciting and very elite levels of strength and conditioning. And when you see, again, these relatively enormous human beings, they're probably a little bit smaller than a lot of American football,
Mm-hmm.
but the motor, so to be able to deliver that motor, forget about the hitting, which we're going to talk about, but the motor on such a large human being, it, you could have elite cardiovascular fitness, and I think most people would relate to. Okay, I understand. You could be whatever body fat and have an incredible conditioning as a heavyweight boxer or heavyweight MMA, but you don't have nearly the conditioning as Mighty Mouse. And it does, you could be doing the same things. Everybody could be doing all the same things, but when you just carry more weight,
It's harder.
that counts. Like you're just a Mack truck,
Yep.
or a diesel truck, which can probably catch up to the little car down the road, but it just doesn't have all the same things. And are you seeing that, obviously playing at that level, in a very, important league? I mean, this isn't like third division, where guys are training in their garage. Where does that match up to at least what you saw when you came to America, or even training at WWE at the PI?
Yeah, so with rugby, obviously, it's very position specific, even from a conditioning standpoint. So I was a prop forward, so a lot of our stuff is repeat effort things, and basically over 10 meters. So we would carry the ball 10 meters up and down off the floor. So a lot of our conditioning, a lot of our training would be short bursts, and then obviously we'd work on initially getting a great aerobic base, obviously to then obviously recover from that and keep doing that for 80 minutes. Um, and that transferred really well to professional wrestling because we work in bursts. It's just like you're taking the bumps, you're up, you're down, you're left, you're right, and high intensity activity. And then you'll have periods of kind of just laying around, selling, and doing what you're doing. So it correlated actually pretty well to how we performed in a WWE ring. But I would say that the knowledge of the people and the way that we trained in the WWE was just a little bit more specific as opposed to what we did for rugby. I always think the UK, probably not now, but back then, we were behind quite a lot when it comes to.
What years was your heyday in
So
rugby?
I debuted at 17 years old in 2006, 2005, 2006, and then I retired 2015.
So let me run this by you,
So
because
no,
you
2004, 2015. Yeah.
yeah, because you played in the UK, but you're from Wales, right?
No, I'm actually from
No,
I'm
you're from.
from England. I'm from Yorkshire. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know where I got that mixed up, but unless that's the character piece, but the um I'm told by Tony Strudwick, so you can talk to him if anybody has questions about this, that I was the second American that ever got brought to United. I'd have to look it up, like 2013 or 14, and that's why I'm asking, because something very interesting happened when I was there, and Tony was on a Nike board with me, and that's kind of, there's a really one of the most amazing things in my career, not just because I do understand what it is for an American to work there, and the little stories, like, getting stopped, at least, I don't know, uh, how half a mile outside of the training grounds, with pictures and everything, because I'm in that car, and they don't know who's in it, and because you have to stop. They're like the security checkpoint, but there's even better stories. So I brought all red clothes, because that's kind of
Mhm.
trying to show respect for that. And Tony asked me, "Hey, while you're here, are you okay consulting with anybody else?" And I'm like, "Well, Tony, you're paying, and I don't, back at that time, this wasn't like this major payday, but this was something that was, it wasn't nothing, and it didn't matter. I had to, I'm doing something. This is amazing." And he's like, "No, no, it's fine. Like, um, City found out that you were here, and I don't know how that actually happened, because I wasn't really being public about this. And they'd like you to, if you wanted to come over, they'd love to talk to you for a little while." I'm like, I'm not just saying yes or no. I'm thinking like, "Tony, I only have red shirts." He's like, "Oh, nobody cares. It's just the fans that are like that." Now, here's why I'm bringing it up. I had, around that time, which was so ironic, the story of how things are easy to remember when they're emotional. It was around July 4th, which has no meaning there, and we would talk about that. They're like, "Yeah, we don't really think of it as anything. It's not like a bad thing there, even though it probably should be." The Lions were there to play Wales,
Right.
and I don't know if they were playing it. You wouldn't play in Old Trafford, though. That's just for football, right? Like they would have played.
We used to have big finals, so like playoff finals and challenge cups. We used to have that at Old Trafford and Wembley.
Yeah,
So just for big games.
the same big stadiums. So I thought that Tony was going to ask me that the Lions, wanted me to come consult or hang out for a little bit, but it was Manchester City. Now I don't know which one was better. I'm trying to see if you overlapped at that level. So you couldn't have been far from Manchester
No,
around that
I was
13 or 14.
Yeah, so I would have actually been playing for a couple of clubs. There was a club called Salford, which is actually in the Greater Manchester area. So yeah,
Yeah,
I would have been right in the midst of that area. Yeah,
yeah. So that part of the country, where maybe you might see stray dogs in an inner city. You got stray horses just running around like they own the. I'm like, that's a horse.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
like um, and then of course the mall was every bit
Oh
as
yeah, the traffic.
suburban American than anything that we've seen. The mall, like, I don't even know if they call it like an American mall,
We would just call it the Trafford Centre. Yeah, that's what we
yeah,
called it.
exactly. Even though I had been to the UK several times, that is where I learned what quid meant. And he's like, yeah, it's gonna be 8 quid. I'm like, holy fuck, I don't know what
What
that
is
means,
this?
man.
What is this
It's
language?
like, yeah. So I think, am I correct that a quid is just a
A
pound?
quid's just a pound. Yeah, quid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like a buck, like a
Yeah, a
dollar
buck.
is a
Yeah,
buck. Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, a
Yeah.
buck.
So, yeah. Now let's get back to that training piece, because I know, at least everywhere, whether it's whatever sport it is, that anti-glycolytic approach to training is usually applicable for any team sport, because it's all hurry up and wait. And is that a word that got thrown around, or they say this is just how we're going to do it?
Yeah, it's like, hey, this is what we're doing. Do this.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you've got X.
And look, did you feel that training that way required a lot of trust?
Yeah, obviously
Yeah,
you've got these. You have your career, your health, and your pretty much
yeah,
your performance to an extent, or your capabilities to perform at a certain level are in this person's hands. Um, so yeah, and
because
go ahead.
you're never really getting tired. And when I tell my guys, and of course it takes the same trust. That's all the same things. You got to trust the coach. You got to trust the plan. And I said, look, the way to never get tired in the game is to never get tired when you train. So it's that's a little bit of an exaggeration. Did you find that was the case?
Well, they used to initially. I mean, back when I played, they used to absolutely smash us to pieces.
So
Like
that's not anti-glycolytic anymore. Then.
they used to,
Yeah,
but back then it was like they would just want to smash us to pieces. Honestly, they
yeah,
would have to do it all
nonsense.
sorts. Yeah, smash us to
Yeah,
pieces, and it was very old school type of training. But then later on in my career, then it became a lot more off feet stuff and just looking after ourselves a little bit more. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, initially, man, they used to absolutely crucify us. It was a bit.
But when you're talking about those short sprints, so what's 10 meters? For those that don't know, a meter is about a yard. So what's it going to take to do a flying 10? Uh, in theory, you should be resting maybe another 57 seconds,
Mhm.
of which in the first couple reps, they're like, this ain't shit. Like, what are you wasting my time with this? And then around rep 7 or 8,
Oh yeah,
as long as that 10 meters is 100%. And another language, and I'm interested if this resonates going back to that type of training, not the burials, is maximum. You want maximum output, then you got to have maximum rest.
yeah,
And you can hear certain people repeating that over and over again. And it's interesting because when you nail that catchphrase, you've done something.
Mhm.
And as a coach, when people that I'm coaching repeat what I'm saying, that's no different than you nailing the catchphrase in front of the crowd,
yeah, exactly.
when they all want to repeat with you. So when we look at that anti-glycolytic training, of course, keep the highs high and keep the lows low, but that doesn't resonate as much. It's like, hey, you want maximum speed, you want maximum output, got to have maximum rest.
Yeah,
And then of course you just set things up where you're begging for a minute rest rather than being like, this ain't shit.
yeah.
So yeah, rugby is when you see, of course, you're going to see the bigger teams and whatnot, and the national teams, and no one ever really sees what the Polynesians are actually doing for their training.
Probably eating, just
But
eating.
it seems to work. But when you see All Blacks, because obviously they're going to get publicized, you're going to see the national team from the UK, the Lions. It just looks like there's a lot of intelligent things, and also too, it just looks like when you guys are like in the weight room, everybody just looks like they know what they're doing. Yeah, it's and that's the culture. Whereas even in an NFL weight room, where for most positions you have handled the barbell, by the time you're 15 years old, it's just a culture of that sport. Where in other sports, it's certainly not the case. They need to be told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it just seems like whenever you see something from rugby, and of course you're only seeing very, very high levels, it just seems like everybody's just going and maybe that fits a little bit of that all black, all that legacy type of culture where the players are just as invested as the coaches and everybody's equal and blah, blah, blah. And that's not blah, blah. There's a lot of things there that are really important. But is that the case? Like, when you're at a professional rugby team, does everybody kind of know how to train?
Yeah, pretty much. I would say that everyone, even outside of rugby, had a vested interest in being in the gym and being in shape and being strong and being and just being in shape and that carried over. You had the odd anomaly, guys that were not strong in the gym, weren't interested in the gym, but get them on the field, and it's like they had a force field around them. Obviously, you have them outliers that never touch your weight,
Yeah.
but are just so strong out on the field. But for the most part, yeah, the guys like to get in the gym. They like to have that competition. They like to just throw some tin around. Yeah.
No, it just looks like they knew what they were doing. Whereas when I'm in a much NFL would be the most comparable. Now here's the last thing, and obviously there's enormous injuries in both, but in rugby where you're wearing basically minimal to zero protective equipment, we actually don't see the same head injuries.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an idea as to why that is, and it's more than just the technical proficiency. Obviously, sometimes you see rugby or even other types of sports coming to the NFL to re-coach, a technique.
Yeah.
But do you ever think about why concussions is such an enormous issue in American football, but maybe not as much in rugby?
I think a lot of the time it is because of the. No, I don't know, but obviously because there's so much padding and there's almost an air of invincibility with those pads.
Yeah.
You can just fly in and go kamikaze style. Where rugby, there was an air of that when I played. So you used to be able to do this thing called a shoulder charge, and you could come out from like C defender and absolutely wipe someone out. But now they've banned that out of the game because the prevalence of concussions from that type of contact was very high. So now it's a lot
So
more.
what does that mean? What
But
does that mean, Ridge? Is that you're just going to blindside somebody? You're coming,
you just either blindside someone or you could just go in there and it's just a dip of the shoulder, bang. You know.
so like in hockey, you can't do that. I don't know what they call it, targeting,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
maybe they call it in American football. But look, I think you're absolutely right. That'll be my opinion. I don't have any knowledge on this, but no differently than why you wear gloves in fighting. It's not to protect. It protects your hands,
Yeah,
not your
yeah,
face. So I just think that when you're wearing a helmet and pads, it not only leads to some different type of technical options,
yeah,
because sometimes you'll see do textbook just the same way you would see it in rugby, but the peak forces are not quite the same.
yeah.
Even though it looks like that, but because you don't have pads on, you're not accelerating nearly as fast as you might feel if you were all covered up.
I agree, and even from the point of like, obviously the games are so different from the NFL to rugby. You might have guys that have been playing 25 minutes non-stop, so there's going to be an element of fatigue. So the forces aren't going to be as heavy. Whereas guys from the NFL, it's it's short and sharp. It's the time that they're playing. It's like one play, okay, now we can rest. So those guys, they can go at it,
Yeah, yeah.
and unload.
Well, let's let's move on to professional sport number two. Um, and obviously, given the entirely minimal level of structure, and obviously the performance center in WWE, I don't even count that, and I've got some, obviously, as we know, some firsthand knowledge at a number of levels, where yeah, this is not exactly um, the Olympic Training Center, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But without letting anything out of the bag that doesn't need to be out of the bag. Let's talk about some of those training philosophies and concepts that at least you believe in. If you have a young professional wrestler or professional wrestler to be, again, I can give you some of my experience of what I'm seeing. But what did you see for yourself? Obviously, you came, your look was not part of the problem as far as a big guy. But talk about a little bit of the training philosophies that was thrown at you.
So a lot of it was a lot of it was kind of inspired by like Joe DeFranco. Like we did a lot of his style stuff. Obviously, a lot of kind of like conjugate method type stuff. But it was the thing that, because they're trying to fit so many things into the day. If you think about it, Charlie, you've been in the ring for 3 hours, right? And you're taking the bumps and you're fatigued, and then you've got to go to the weight room and you're doing 6 sets of 3 box squats. It's just not conducive to a healthy environment. There's going to be something that happens there. Your body is going to give. So the one thing that I would always say is I would almost like to get the weights out of the way in the morning first, recover, refuel, and then go into the ring work. Whereas if you're trying to max out on a 3 rep, whatever, you know.
So when you're coming up in NXT, is that your option? Like you have multiple windows in which you can do the weight room stuff and where you do the technical stuff. That's your
So,
choice.
so no, not really. It's pretty much set. So
No.
they would say, okay, you're
Yeah.
in so and so's class. This is the ring time, 8:30. While 11 or 11:30, you'd have a little break, and then you do your weights, and then after that there would
You have
be,
promo.
well, you have promo, but also before that you would have extra ring. So not only would you have ring getting beat up, you would go to the weight room, do what you needed to do in the weight room, and then you would go and do in ring again to work on certain things that you might have missed in the first class. So it's a lot of volume,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you are constantly under recovered. I remember wanting to try and put a little bit of mass on, and you can't. You're just not recovered,
No.
and obviously then you have the shows at the weekend. You're getting in at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. You're not sleeping adequately. So you're kind of on this conveyor belt. It's a meat grinder. It's literally a meat grinder. Um,
Yeah.
and I would. It got to a point where I got to one of the more experienced guys in NXT, and I would just do my own training. Like I would say, okay, and I would set aside my training, and even I would just weight train 3 days a week because that's what I knew that I could recover from. I would do full body 3 days a week because that is what I could recover from, and
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
still perform in the ring. Because if I was trying to go 4 days a week and push, I'd just be spinning my wheels and I get hurt. And I did get hurt.
Well, look, it's disappointing because at least some of the names that I know of, they know better than that. And I think you came right before the Exos crowd kind of took that piece, and then it kind of flipped to total other direction,
Mhm,
where then you weren't training much at all given that model,
mhm.
which again has value, but certainly not for an aesthetic or to maintain lots of weight. And I think that's how a lot of organizations, also with technical coaching, which is not part of this conversation. I have no horse in that race. But sometimes when you have a player's coach, your next one is a big dictator.
Mhm.
And then when you see strength and conditioning that looks a certain way and it might not be getting it done or not getting the results or the feedback that it should be, well, then we're going this other direction. And you went from some version of conjugate and trying to fit 6 pounds of poop in a 5 pound bag to little yellow rubber bands and the pillar series, which it should be taken with all levels of sarcasm. That's ridiculous for a 6'3", a 250-pound human to do that anything more than
Mhm.
a fleeting few minutes for freestyle warm up and things of that nature. So
It's
what yeah, you mentioned before though the hurry up and wait. Is that how you feel like you would train? And obviously as you get back into professional wrestling, regardless of what channel it's on, it's still the same product.
so
Still this, yeah.
my own training now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so at the minute coming back from injuries and stuff, I've been focusing on a lot of zone 2 work. just getting that aerobic base back up, obviously, because I've had a lot of time out. And then obviously,
Yeah.
as we ramp up and I get closer to probably in ring work, I love the rowing machine. That's one of the things that we used to use as off feet conditioning with rugby, and I still hold that dear like to this day. So I'll jump on there and I'll do my interval work and start to ramp that up as I get towards kind of getting back to an in ring return and just to get that, you know, start training different energy systems as well and get to feel a
Yeah.
little bit more, have a little bit more punch from an engine perspective.
Interesting. Yeah. The so let's get into meat and potatoes. Now everybody knows who you are and some of the things that you've done and you have every right to be talking about strength and conditioning, both as an athlete and as a coach. Towards the end of your run, you had two major injuries.
Mm-hmm.
One of which, you gave me the privilege to have a big part in helping you, and maybe the other one a little bit after the fact. But let's talk about the second one first because it's a little bit less directly related to the foot. Obviously, the other one is the foot, but you had a disc replacement. And do you remember when those symptoms? Was there one event that kind of brought on, et cetera?
I think it was honestly a chronic issue. I'd had a couple of stingers, just taking bumps, and my neck was bugging me. And the one issue was I got schoolboyed in class. Actually, I was going and doing some extra stuff, and I got schoolboyed by a pretty new guy, and he jacked me right on my neck, and my feet touched the floor, and that sent me. You obviously sent pains down my arm and things like that. And I had a little bit of atrophy, a little bit of radiating nerve pain down into the bicep, into the elbow, and a little bit into the forearm. So I thought, oh, something's not right. And then when I had
Yeah.
time, I managed to go for some imaging, and they said, yeah, you've got a couple of kind of collapsed discs there, but we'll try doing some non-surgical options first. I'm thinking, well, it's more structural, so there's nothing really that we can do. And then obviously speaking to yourself, and I spoke to other people who'd put me forward for a fusion. Didn't want to go down that route. Obviously, I spoke to you, and we marred over a couple of options, and we ended up going for the 2-level cervical disc replacement. And it was,
Well, look,
go ahead.
I'll do the talking here because I don't want you to feel like there's something that you can't say because I'm allowed to say. I don't. I'll and again, this is also a wrestling term here, but I'll protect you a little bit here. The reality here is in all professional sports, we think that the individuals working there, but especially the medical side, these are not always at the level of the athletes or the performers. That's me saying that. I'm allowed, and I've been there. I've been there. Okay. And a lot of times the doctors themselves, not just the medical from the physical therapy or the certified athletic trainer side, they have a financial arrangement to be the team doctor, et cetera, et cetera. So they clearly have a representation for the team or the business in this case. They may not always like now, you always want to think that there's this Hippocratic oath and we always need to do what's right for the patient. But as somebody who has been on the inside, I will tell you point blank that when there is a point that it's like not egregious and not disgusting, but when there's a right-left decision, you know, I work for the team. The correct thing for me to do, if both ways are equal, in my professional opinion, that's very possible. That's a tough situation. And in WWE's case, obviously all of your injury-based healthcare is covered. That's never been an issue. However, I think there's an understanding, and a lot of that is because of the nature of the business. There is a coercion, if you will, meaning there's a political reason to kind of just do what they want you to do.
Yeah.
And for many years ago, the relationship with the Andrews Institute, when Dr. James Andrews was the man who has not been practicing for years, he is no longer much of an option, especially for a neck. He would never be doing that in the first place. That is not the only option that WWE performers have. And again, you were in a very unique situation that had some other noise around it. But the reality is that you kind of kicked a little bit, because the Andrews Institute is not the place that maybe it's made out to be. Just because it's associated with the single most spectacular entertainment business in the world, that doesn't mean they're the best physicians and surgeons on earth, especially for a neck. And you found that point blank,
Yeah.
where they didn't even offer you the option for a cervical replacement, which is absolute. Whether you want to come back or not, that is absolutely. And you see the rehab wasn't that big of a deal, which I told you. But they didn't tell you it because they didn't know how to do it. And they didn't tell you that either. They didn't say, hey, if you look at this other physician over here, where you got to get on a plane to the greatest city in the world, and you go to a surgeon who's a lot better than me, then maybe they can get you an option. They didn't tell you that.
No.
Which really, and you can tell in my voice, and again, when I represent the player or the athlete, now I'm going this direction. I'm not going, and we've talked a lot about that, in what I do, and I found it egregious that not that surgeon was kind of coerced, because of course there's a lot of political reasons why any employee of any business should do what they're kind of told to do or recommended to do, and no one's stupid. I mean, of course there's some type of financial arrangement, but they're obligated by law to, under certain state laws. And you wound up with, let's just say, he would be on the list for one of the best spine surgeons in the world. I'm glad that I was able to help you do that. I will say Hospital for Special Surgery, because they're a big part of my business model. That shouldn't be shocking anybody that a great surgeon would work at what is year after year the single most decorated, and of course there's some marketing push to that piece, but the best orthopedic hospital in the world. But the mere fact that you were not offered or told that, hey, we don't do this here, but you should look into this.
Yeah.
That's soggy. That's soggy. And obviously anyone that has the option to get a disc replacement, and we've seen a number of individuals, even with a more aggressive approach to solving a neck problem, you certainly can come back. And I told you, like, even if it was a fusion, we've seen multiple of the greatest of all time come back. And it's just because when we talk about the spine, if you mess around with the Jenga at the top, it doesn't fall down. And that's how you saw Kurt Angle and Steve Austin and Edge, and those three come to mind. There's probably others. More recently, I can't think of who was, but maybe there's somebody else.
Will Ospreay for AEW, he just had his fusion.
Yeah, and these guys can all come back, but from a long term, now back then they may not have even had the option because it didn't exist. But 7 months ago, you did have the option to have a cervical replacement, and you were not given the option because they didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And that in itself is not a bad thing. But hey, you know what, Ridge? I don't know how to handle this type of knee problem, but I want you to look up my guy over here. Maybe he can. God forbid that you. And I'm glad that because I think life is about stories, and stories. The book is closed when the story's over, but you still remember these parts of the story, and that's why I'm saying it. So not only should we always be exploring, in this particular case, a disc replacement over decompressions and or fusions. And of course, a fusion is a little bit more common than a decompression in the cervical spine. But these are all just big words. There's a lot of different things that can be part of these main categories. There's even fusions have good, better, and best based on the technique and what kind of hardware, how many levels, et cetera, et cetera. But when we talk about the rehab of that cervical replacement, wasn't really much to do. You just kind of let it ride a little bit and you're good.
I remember texting you and I'm like, you're like, are you good? And like, I would just get updates from Karishi, and I'd obviously follow up with yourself, and it'd be like, yeah, you'll be fine. And honestly, I've had 7 surgeries over the past 7 years, and the neck surgery has been the most straightforward, pain-free surgery of recovery that I've had.
Yeah, my opinion, obviously, I would always, and I told you this, I tell it to everybody, I don't question what the surgeon wants to do. I question the surgeon. And if you're cool with the person, the human being, and how they're talking to you, that just doesn't mean they're nice. Like there's something that you got to be able to go in there and know, and then you let him or her decide the type of procedure that they're going to do. I don't question the procedure, but I know if you're going to see Koreshi, I'm not. Who the hell am I to question? We just won't go there if I'm going to question them. Now, the foot piece, where I want to talk a little bit more here before we part. Again, no joke here. A Lisfranc injury of any level, we would have done the same thing. We would have gone to O'Malley, who I'm even closer with, because obviously I would see more of these types of things, especially in American football. The Lisfranc is an area of joints, right around where let's just say where the toes meet the bones of the middle of your foot. And that is no joke at any level. When there's a fracture and then there's a it cannot be diagnosed alone on MRI. We need a weight bearing piece, especially if the symptoms are not aggressive. So let's start over there. What do you remember about that particular injury? And if you need to talk about the wrestling boots, I think that might be interesting to some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Do you remember when that happened?
Yeah, for sure. So I initially was doing this cross promotion piece with TNA, and I was in the ring with a guy called Moose. I'm sure you're familiar with him. And I sent him up from a pop-up powerbomb, and because he's so athletic, he went so high. I stepped forward, his weight came down kind of on my face. I took a step back with my left foot, and it felt like, imagine my foot being a dishcloth inside my boot, and it felt like someone wrung the dishcloth out. And I thought, it's nothing I've ever felt before. I was like, that's weird. And then I couldn't put weight on it. And so I told the ref, obviously, I can't. It's not safe for me to pick this guy up or him to pick me up and everything. So we called the match. And then we got to the back, and like you said, it needs confirmation from a couple of different, pieces of equipment or a couple of different, things. And the trainer at the time said, "Oh, I think you've just sprained your midfoot." And I was like, "I think it's a little."
Well, that falls into. I told you this. That does fall into the category.
Yeah.
A Lisfranc sprain, by definition, is a midfoot sprain, but a midfoot sprain could probably be 12 other things.
Yeah. Well, it turns out, obviously, I flew back the morning after, and I had a couple of X-rays done, the weight bearing thing that you'd said, and obviously, you can see, and obviously the underneath the foot you get the bruising, kind of like underneath the foot, and just you've ruptured those that tendon there, so it was surgery, a couple of pins, and it was rough. That was probably the most painful surgery that I've had. Because obviously there's not.
Now,
Go ahead.
I can't comment on the recovery there, but just to be fair, I would be much more comfortable with a certain surgical group for that than what you were doing with your neck, because again, it doesn't mean that these are bad people, but to suggest that just because there's a surgeon that you like, or even worse, has a financial arrangement with your workplace, to think that they're the best is ridiculous. Let's go back a little bit. So I'm not going to expect everybody to know what a power bomb is here. So his private area is up here. His feet are going back there, and you're going to dump him down. So when you have him up here, and Moose is not as big as you, but this is a big dude. I think he played in the NFL. He used to probably be a lot bigger. Yeah. But again, but not very tall. Not a tall dude.
He's a big fella. He's heavy. He was probably weighed about 260 there at that time.
Oh, so he's that big there.
He was a big fella.
He's fit, so he projects a little bit smaller. I would have lost that carnival bet, but so you've got this huge uneven load up top. You take a step to protect yourself a little bit, and your foot, and that's really what can happen in where your foot splays, and that's why an MRI. And I don't remember if we talked about this, but the MRI will show the signal in the area. Mm-hmm. But you don't know if this is more emergent or not, because when you do an MRI, you're laying in a tube, and your hand's like this. Mm-hmm. And then you do a weight-bearing CT where, let's just say, it's figuratively like a sandbag that goes around your waist. Yeah. So now, if I'm standing on my foot here, if it goes like this,
that's exactly.
And I gotta look at this one too, because if this one also goes like that, well, then maybe I don't have that problem. But maybe if I have one side So now if you put two and two together,
Yeah.
and then there's we're measuring the distance.
Mm.
And even if it's not that area is not to be messed with. There's other things that would be a midfoot sprain that would probably also give you few conservative options. So that's how we got there. So and again, to be fair, I'd be much more comfortable with that surgical procedure. With even though Lisfranc is not a sports medicine surgeon, that's a foot surgeon. Ideally, one that also has sports medicine experience. So then you had that surgery. Again, let's say if you didn't like how it felt, that's because it's normal. You had foot surgery.
Yeah.
And so then, how'd that rehab go? What were some of the unique things about the Lisfranc rehab that was part of your experience?
It was very slow and very, very frustrating. Obviously, we start off with obviously just moving the toes and everything like that. It was super. Everything was super slow. It never went as quick as I thought it would do. We got to a point where it was kind of doing just things like toe yoga, just getting those movements there. Banded, eversion, inversion. Ankle pumps, and then obviously because I was in a cast for so long, you have some ankle mobility issues there. Obviously, so I had a point where I had impingement because the talus wasn't moving correctly or gliding, so I had to overcome that. So obviously we did some ankle mobility, but it took a while for the. So then I was trying to get range back, so obviously doing calf raises and things, but because I still had the metal work in there. I could only go to a certain point. It's not as if I can push past that point. And then as soon as the metal work come out, we could start kind of ramping things up we could load, we could do kind of, foot shortening drills. We could do kind of like depth jump landing, single leg, balance.
Just train.
Yeah.
Just train. Yeah.
Training, yeah.
I mean,
training.
that's was the removal of hardware planned, or was that something that came up during the rehab?
No.
Or did we know in the beginning? I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was planned, and it got to a point where like the hardware was causing me some issues. Yeah. So it was like this needs to come out. I could feel it.
And I think that's where I kind of had jumped in for you. And usually the ROH removal of hardware is not that big of a fuss in terms of a surgical procedure. Obviously, you're out, like there's some real business going on, but it's not as big a deal as the repair or reconstruction that was initial.
No,
and obviously, if the hardware is crossing the joints, you're screwed. And now if you maybe some of your old rugby guys that broke their femur, you can leave that rod in there, and as long as there's no problem, with the acceptance of this, then there's no reason to take it out. It doesn't cross any joint, and we need that. We need the hardware sometimes. It's part of how you maintain the repair and the structure of the bone, or the soft tissue, like in this case, these ligaments around the Lisfranc joint. How long start to finish with a slow pace?
I'm saying. So when did I get cleared? I probably got cleared in April. So I had the surgery in October, and I got cleared beginning of April for the foot. So yeah, it was a long, tedious process. But it really started to pick up once I got the hardware out, and we could kind of work on getting that range of movement back. But even then, with the ankle, I'd dislocated and fractured that same ankle in a previous injury from wrestling. So I was overcoming ankle mobility issues from the previous injury.
From that.
And then so it's like I was behind the eight ball. So and I'm still working on it now. I'm trying to.
When you were in the midst, even when you're in the boot with the Lisfranc, were you training upper body and other leg?
Yeah, I was training everything I could. Just
yeah. No, again, this is whether it's my advice, Luke, as in your coach's advice, this stuff is mandatory, and this is stuff that surgeons don't know until they work with physical therapists and coaches that demand these types of things, because we talk till the cows come home. The humoral and hormonal effects of training, and of course you can manipulate the training specifically for those things. And like when you train for these healing agents, I don't want to say certain words that people are going to jump all over, but you can train for those things. it's not like they only go to your shoulder when you're bench pressing. Yeah, when you're releasing, when your training is very specific. Let's say, I will say it, because the healing hormone is human growth hormone. And obviously, there's probably a suggestion human growth hormone is actually a peptide. Not that it matters, but it's not like it doesn't go places in your body
Right?
to help the healing process.
Yeah.
It's why people cheat. These things have, but you can also train, which is, in theory, I would just say, a biologically simply more expensive process. Maybe not financially for this particular hormone, but it's ludicrous when there's a message that when you have even a serious surgery. Now, it's actually very easy when you're in a boot. You can't really hurt your foot. I mean, why wouldn't you be doing pull-ups?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you be training the other leg, or at least put your foot up on a slider to do the rower that you really enjoy doing? And we can manipulate those variables for hormones, for an immune response, because there's a lot of, let's just say, oxidative stress from any type of healing process, and all of your conditioning. If I can get better blood flow, then and I need that for my foot.
Yep.
Now, it might be too late to get anything directly in the calf and the foot. The horse is out of the barn there. But if I do my knee, it's not like mitochondria doesn't go to this area at all. So I'm glad that it could have been even slower.
Well, I mean, even things like, with the blood flow restriction training, even if you're doing a leg extension, things like that, you take that occlusion off, and you get the the influx of growth factors and things like that. What you've just spoke about, I've done that for all my injuries that I've had. I've just kept training, and it's no doubt it's sped up my recovery process. Even by 1%. But when you're in this game, I will take 1% over not.
Well, I'm going to tell you it's much more than 1%, but I'm more harping on the message. How do we take some of these real life stories that might have a little bit of gloss and a little bit of interest, and how can somebody, like if there's an AI of this, like what are some of these things that anybody can take away? Number one, if your surgeon doesn't tell you these things, that doesn't mean you're not allowed to do it. Because your goofball surgeons from Andrews Institute, who I'm glad did a good enough job here. It wouldn't have been as good if we went to New York. You know that. And so does everybody else. And I say that with some tone, maybe with a little bit of a promo, because there's this political level of coercion, and it's no different in the NFL, NBA, etc. And again, I'm not going to out any specific situations any more than I already have in some other public settings, but like just because the team doctor works for the same team that pays you $30 million, that doesn't mean they are the best option for you. Now, when we round table with the agent, and you guys have agents, but it's not the same. Like a football, basketball, baseball agent, like they have a seat at the table here with these decisions.
Oh, sure.
And there's lots of levers that can be pulled to make sure the different players, both top level and lower level, get the best levels of everything involved, not just medical care, which is bizarre that we have to somehow strategize and negotiate to get this, when if the response to this type of message is like, oh, well, that's just Charlie's opinion. I've never taken $1 from you. That's number one. Number two, yes, it is my opinion that certain places are better than others. I don't know why that wouldn't have any logic to it, but it's also my opinion that the sky is blue. So these are some things that are just largely accepted as fact, even though anyone's allowed to say opinion. And there's and I'm not even going to get into any other. Obviously there's some even more famous concerns about different medical conditions over the years that we've seen. That's not what I'm talking about. Like just because your workplace recommends a certain occupational health pathway
doesn't mean go down that route.
That's why. And also, all I'm saying, it does. Maybe in other workplaces you do have to do that. Like it's not an option.
Yeah.
You were there was a little bit of a roadblock that we were able to very easily remove. But you see, like how ridiculous would that be? Where they're going to write the check for the surgery, but not the $500 consult. So we were able to take care of that. But that's a barrier. Like maybe you didn't have the money to do that, at which point you wouldn't have been able to access a much more effective surgery for your condition. I'm talking about the neck. But again, when it comes to training, just because your surgeon doesn't say do this, like that doesn't mean you're not allowed to do it. It doesn't mean you should do it. It just means, do you have enough information for the guidance? And that has nothing to do with being professional athletes. It has nothing to do with some of these unfortunate circumstances that a lot of people in a lot of places have to deal with. Because I don't think everybody even has the option. When Aunt Sally slips at work, she doesn't have the option all the time to go to the doctor that she wants, without invalidating a lot of other financial pieces to their puzzle.
Yeah.
There's a number of bullet points here we talked a lot about, but my vision here was to use some very, very interesting stories, also to hear from not only a high level professional athlete, but somebody that maybe is hopefully people will hear more from a little bit more. I did mention where you're doing your training, but I'm a little bit hesitant to continue because I don't want anybody to think this has anything to do with money coming into my household. But why don't you just talk a little bit as far as how you're working
Yeah.
and if somebody wants to connect with you, as well as for other things, because you are still a professional wrestler. And while I'm not sure there's too much business for you from who's going to watch this through my channels, I don't have any problem with you talking about that as well.
No, I'm just obviously when me and you, Charlie, first met, I got recommended. I'm obviously into the coaching game now, working for Silverback, which is obviously your lovely wife Ali's business. I'm having a great time. I love working for Silverback, and obviously coaching alongside Jim Ferries and just the plethora of smarter individuals that I've been able to come into contact with that I can learn from. It's been amazing, and I'm enjoying coaching and helping people. I think the biggest thing for me is I just want to help people, and if I can draw from my experiences and I can learn more and improve my knowledge to help people, that's a win for me. That's what I want to do. I just want to help people, and so if anybody wants coaching, Silverback's the way to go. And obviously professional wrestling, I'm looking forward to getting back in the ring. At Ridge WWE on Instagram. Unfortunately, Meta hasn't let me change my handle yet. But yeah, it's definitely something that is close to my heart and something that I want to be very, very, very good at, and coaching, training, helping people. So I'm grateful for the position that I'm in.
Yeah, and I think we've seen enough as all of us that are professional wrestling fans that don't never say never. So does it, and that it might be easy to say never, and we're talking about other people. Hopefully whatever it is that you want to do, because I would also say that helping people in terms of training is no different in a grand scope of helping people for entertainment. I'll give you one last story here that I know we haven't talked about. Um, there was a point where right before Shane left for China, he and I were going to work together. He was at Drive 495, our gym with Don Saladino in the city. I remember one day walking in like, wow, that dude has big arms. And I was like, wow. So it was very rare that I would mark out for somebody in our gym. Shane McMahon was one. So one day we're talking. I said, hey, man, I'll probably never meet your dad, so I got to tell you something. And he goes, oh, what's that? And I said, I got two words for you. And of course, he thinks what I'm going to say. And I said those two words was thank you. I said thank you for, at that point, I don't know what it was, 30 years maybe,
Yeah.
Of something to look forward to. Like, hey, when you know that everything's shitty, you know that at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Eastern, there's something to look forward to. And even if the show sucked, where you could talk to hundreds of thousands of WWE fans, we still watch, no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's a little bit better. It was better a couple years ago, particularly when you were in the main event, right? But obviously you go back certain years, it was complete and utter trash. But a lot of people didn't watch, but most people that would be fans at this particular level. And he's like, wow, obviously that's not what I expected you to say. And every time Shane came back to the gym, because that's when he went to China to to set up
Business.
I think it was a Chinese pay-per-view,
Yeah,
whatever he did. So, but yeah, like I think helping people as an entertainer is which is what all professional athletes are.
mhm.
You can maybe look at it a different way, and that's okay. But I think there's a lot of things there that I don't know that people always think about, and that's usually my MO. Like, not only will I typically say things that other people are thinking, but I can land it. But there's oh wow, very interesting way of looking at
Yeah.
that. Like it's so
Yeah,
that's
it's just been able to obviously, like you said, you can be going through any kind of shit, but then for those 2 hours, you forget about it,
yeah.
and that's
Like when you take the pitch or when my guys are on the field or on the court, like the whole essence of entertainment is to forget some of these incredibly horrible things that we have to deal with in life. And wrestling is always, for me and many others, it gives you something to look forward to. And you know that, okay, fine, if I get all this done and I'm good by 7:56, and I turn on the blah blah blah. I can sit and watch something where you can lose it. A friend of mine that I grew up with, he was actually we went to preschool together. His dad explained this, not about professional wrestling. He would have been very disappointed in any viewing of this, but he was a huge sports fan, and like say like sports lives in the world's culture to for what you're saying, to help people. It's just a different way of looking at it, and that's it. Also for me makes it very disappointing when entertainers use their platform to do things other than
and
entertain. Like you're not real to me. See, that's why this is a little bit different. You're a real human being, but Ridge Holland's not a real person.
no,
And that's I could go on for some of the professional athletes that I've worked with, where oh my God, how can you work with him? He's a like, what are you talking about? Like, he's a cartoon to you. He doesn't even exist in your world. Like, what are you even talking about?
yeah,
You don't know this person. Blah blah blah. So maybe that's another thing that we can put on that bullet list from this talk on how we're both trying to help people. So how about we call it there? Because I know you got to go run the ropes here and
yeah, yeah, we get
continue to get in shape and work on that Lisfranc joint in your foot
yeah,
and 5'6" and 6'7", or and make sure that stinger doesn't come back. So,
yeah.
all right, man, we'll catch up and we'll see you soon.
I appreciate it, Charlie. Thank you for your time.
All right, man, be well. Bye bye.
Bye bye.